Geico presents Our Town Season 4, a 30-minute podcast produced by Best Bark Communications, a small but fierce client-centered marketing company powered by decades of experience and well-established business networks. Geico, 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. Now, here's your host, Andy Ockershausen.
This is Our Town. This is Andy Ockershausen, and we're introducing to our podcast one of the more famous regulators in the history of broadcasting. The man was a commissioner. He was a general counsel. He became chairman of the FCC. He is one of the most important people in the history of broadcasting, and we're so delighted to have Dick Wiley here in Our Town.
Andy, thank you. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you once again. And we're still clicking, you know?
You're clicking, I'm clicking. Thank God Janice keeps me clicking. But Dick, you've had such an illustrious life, career, and everything before you went before you left the government. But you were such an important part of the growth of broadcast to me in our town and in the world. And what you did as commissioner, and if you remember the days when then I would call on you with Dick Chapin,
absolutely,
from Nebraska. We were always interested in what the commission was doing and what you were doing, and it helped our industry tremendously.
Well, we were trying to eliminate some of the old, outmoded regulations. The industry had changed and grown and prospered, and the regulations remained the same. So you and Dick were bringing in good ideas to try to make some changes.
And well, before you would make it, Digging Birch was trying the same
Absolutely.
thing.
He was my predecessor.
Yeah, well, he
great
was
guy.
Your predecessor, but he was never general counsel like you are.
No.
I remember when you were the general counsel.
I was his general counsel.
Yeah, oh, that's it. That's correct. That was quite a team at the time, because you were on the same team about trying to get rid of these ridiculous restrictions. In addition, restrictions are good, but when they're ridiculous, they're awful.
Well, as life goes on, the industry's changed, technology changes. The regulation can't stay the same. And I think that's what we started. They've certainly gone much beyond where we were in the 70s. This was the 70s, Andy.
Oh, I know. I remember that. Oh, my God. But there was such a growth period in the industry in the 70s.
It really was.
It was incredible with the networks
and other technologies were coming in at the time. Satellite,
we didn't know what they
television
were.
And cable. Nobody wondered whether cable was going to do anything. It became, of course, a very dynamic industry. And now we've got the internet, which has changed everything. Just
the modest changes that we made in radio at the time, because everything was in a little disc, and we had no tapes. It was ancient. Now all that is gone, Dick. Everything's gone up here somewhere, and we don't know where it is, but it worked. We could watch a tape in a tape recorder, but we can't watch it now.
Absolutely.
But Dick, tell me now, you've had such an illustrious career, but a lot of people don't know you as a baseball fanatic, starting in Chicago, where you grew up.
Yes, I played college baseball
for
Northwestern.
Yeah, I knew that.
And
big time, Big Ten.
And my son played college baseball, and I've got 2 grandchildren playing college baseball. And since I've got 6 of them, I hope there's more to come. Baseball is sort of our family passion.
A few more.
Yeah.
And you went to school, and before you went to North, you went to school. Did you live in the city, or?
No, my folks lived in the suburbs of Chicago. I was born in Peoria, and then my dad moved his business up to the Chicago
Used to be
area.
A lot of jokes about Peoria, but no more. It's probably a wonderful place to be now. Busy.
Yes, I would imagine so. I haven't been back in many years.
But you've been back to Chicago, of course.
Oh, yes, of course. With Northwestern Law School right there,
Is it downtown, the law school?
Downtown. The law school is downtown.
Sort of like Georgetown, the law school is down in the center of the city.
Right.
And you finished your career. Did you go immediately into with a law firm, or did you start your own business?
No, back in those days, you had to serve in the Army, military.
It was a war on it.
And it was no war at the time, but you had to be ready for it. And And I was thinking of going to Harvard Business School because I got out of law school a little early, and I thought I'd combine the two and it'd be great. And the draft board says, we think you're trying to get out of the draft. Prepare to be drafted. So then I said, it's 2 years as an enlistment or 3 years in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. So I took the JAG, and I went to the University of Virginia. And
you moved east?
No, just for that's where the JAG school is, then and now. And then they assigned me to the Pentagon. And I argued cases before the Court of Military Appeals, as it was called then. And
were you a defense attorney?
Government. I was trying to keep those guys who've been convicted of these terrible crimes stayed that way. You know? But the most important thing that happened to me during those 3 years, I went to church one day, a good thing to do, and I met an Arlington school teacher, and it all clicked for us, and we've been married over 50 years, so it's been great.
Well, I knew she's practically a native, too, because she's from Arlington. Was she born in Virginia?
No, she's Bristol.
Virginia?
Yeah, well,
Tennessee.
The hospital is on the Virginia side, but she's from Tennessee.
Yeah, Bristol, Tennessee. Well, that's your whole life has been involved in our town one way or another.
Right.
Since you got out of law school.
I went back to Chicago after the JAG and got a master's degree in law at Georgetown at night. Went back to Chicago, practiced for about 8 years, taught law school at night, and then the chance came to be General Counsel of the FCC. I wanted to go to the Federal Trade Commission because I was doing antitrust work, but the White House said, Dean Birch is looking for a general counsel. We think you guys would click. And we went over there, and it worked out. I met, you may remember these guys, Bob Cahill and Pat O'Donnell. Remember those great guys?
Oh, yeah.
They were Birch's assistants. And
Cahill ended up with a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, he did well.
God, with that network, that was the first Spanish network, wasn't it? Or
right, Univision.
Latino,
yeah,
Univision.
Yeah.
Cahill hit the jackpot. What a bunch of characters. But they were progressive guys in that they wanted to keep growing this industry. And they all worked. And Dean Birch did, too.
Right. And then so I got the job, to my amazement, and I was 36. And about a year later, Dean Birch called me in. The chairman said, "What are you doing about becoming a commissioner?" And I said, "A commissioner? No, I was so happy to be general counsel." He said, "Well, Bob Wells, a former broadcaster from Kansas, was going to retire." And he said, "You better get over to the White House because they'll name somebody else." And so I went over to the White House. And
who was it? Was it Nixon?
Nixon, yeah. And Chuck Percy wanted I had to get it clear with, from Illinois, and I knew him. Right. And so I went up, and he said, "You'd be great." And so I got the commissioner's job. And 2 years later, Dean Birch called me one day and said he's going over to the White House to help President Nixon. And I said, "Well, gosh, he's got some problems." And he said, "Oh, no, it's going to work out fine." Well, he said, "You're going to be the next chairman." So 3 months later, Nixon resigned.
They held you in that position for
But Jerry Ford came in and held all the regulatory commissioners in. And then in 1976, November, you might remember, Jimmy Carter beat Jerry Ford.
Absolutely.
So I thought, well, I'm through, So I went up to the Carter transition team at their request, and I said, "Hey, my term runs out to next June. I've been a commissioner. I'll be a commissioner again. I'm going to stay and finish the term." And they said, "Well, if you're going to stay, we don't have our guy yet. Why don't you just stay on?" As chairman. So I went back and got the 3 Democrats. We had 7 members of the commission.
Right.
Ben Hooks, you may remember some of these guys.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Quallo. And I said, "Guys, you're looking at the next chairman of the FCC." They couldn't believe it. And I was in there for a year as a pretty good Republican in a Democratic administration.
I know, but they held you.
Life was different then. I mean, Ford and Carter had the same views as far as moderate deregulation that you and I worked on. So I had 7.5 years at the FCC.
Well, your timing was incredible.
Yeah, it was.
You hit the right people at the right time.
They were good people.
When I first met Dean Birch, he was running the Goldwater campaign.
Sure.
And the RNC was here, and because being Washington WML, we knew everybody. Everybody knew us. And I do think that the town was different then, Dick. It was a chance for people to get together. Broadcasters, we would hang out with commissioners or lawyers. Lawyers would hang out with broadcasters. Broadcasters knew each other. I knew every GM, every run that ran these radio and TV stations. It's not that way anymore. They're located somewhere else now.
Well,
it's a different world.
Times change, as it does, and you just have to change with the times. And I think broadcasting is, amazingly, still a very great industry, both radio and television. Radio's having kind of a renaissance recently. They're having a radio show right now down in Orlando And
the radio show.
Yeah, they got the radio show.
My friend Ralph Gill was involved in that when he originally started all
Sure,
that.
I remember Ralph Gill.
Why did you never become an owner? Why did you go into the business?
Well, I was a lawyer in Chicago. I'd always been a lawyer, and that was I'd worked for the big law firm in Chicago. So when I got out of the FCC, finally, my wife said, "You're leaving, aren't you?" And this was in
Betty.
Betty, you're right. Thank you. And that's when I went with a big Chicago law firm as head of their Washington office, Kirkland & Ellis.
That's still a big law firm.
Very big. 5 years later, we had 75 lawyers, and 5 years later, they said, "Hey, we're great news. We're going to take one of the Bell spinoffs." AT&T was being broken up. You remember?
Oh,
in
yeah.
the early '80s. And I said, "Well, wait a minute." I said, "I've argued cases on the other side. I've been building this competitive practice." And they said, "Well, that's too bad. You'll have to give up those clients or leave." So at that point, Bert Rein, who was a friend of mine at the firm, REIN, and I decided to leave and start our own firm. We took half their office at 37 lawyers, and we've got maybe 250 now. And
I know, it's just loaded. Well, we're going to talk. I want to come back and talk to you. You mentioned something about Dean Birch that may not be known by a lot of people, but known by us and be shared with the audience. Dean Birch worked with Janice here. Did you know that Dean was...
Saw his son.
Young Dean. Sure,
yes,
I remember him very well. Yeah.
Dino, we called him. This is Our Town. This is Andy Ockersell. We're talking to Dick Wiley about Our Town.
Technology Truths, brought to you by Geico.
Technology Truths.
Truth. You have 14 login passwords, and you can't remember any of them.
Doug 1. Doug 2. Doug is awesome. Doug is awesome 1, 2, 3.
Truth. It's so easy to switch and save on car insurance at geico.com.
Doug is super cool ampersand underscore exclamation point 1985. Knew it.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
This is Attorney Mike Collins. Come to my seminar and I'll explain in plain English all you need to know about wills, trusts, taxes, probate, and how to keep your money in your family. I'll show you how to eliminate those dread death taxes and avoid the expense and delay of probate. See how our reservoir trust can protect your family's inheritance from lawsuits and the divorce court. Thousands of your neighbors have already attended. So watch the mail for your special invitation and register now at MikeCollins.com. That's MikeCollins.com.
You're listening to Our Town.
This is Our Town. This is Andy Ockersell in a conversation with a wonderful, dear, and longtime friend, Dick Wiley, who was the number one man in our business when I grew up. And he was chairman of the FCC. That would scare people to death. Except we had a morning show of Hart and Weaver that got fined by the FCC for doing commercials over 1 minute. Dick, you remember that?
I do remember that.
And it was I never forget. Bob Hyland, the guy in St. Louis, called me. Said, "Whatever you do, don't pay that fine. He said, make them put you in jail." Remember him at KMOX?
Sure. It was a great station.
Great station. He was a very, very delightful man to reach out to me that we were doing something. He said, "It's none of the commission's business. Someday they're going to adopt that." And you did. It became progressive for us to do commercials, and who's to say what it is and what it isn't. But anyway, Dick, about Chicago, something that I remember dimly, and you may not, about Northwestern, about, at least I think I'm correct, Otto Graham.
Great All-American, great football player.
He was a great basketball player, too.
Yeah.
That's what the thing I heard about. He was doing like a Big Ten star or something in basketball.
He also played in the band. His father was head of the band at Waukegan High School, which was one of our big opponents when I played high school baseball out there and basketball. And his dad wrote their theme song, and Otto came down there. And as a kid, I saw Otto Graham playing.
Was he a trumpeter?
I think he played a trombone, but I don't recall.
He was a brass. I remember that.
I played the trumpet in the Northwestern band.
Oh, did you? That's big time, huh? Otto didn't have time for that. He's playing.
Well, he did in a little bit.
But we know when Otto lived here, people that lived out where he lived, and a friend of mine, Bob Bennett, was with Kluge, you know Bob.
Sure, of course.
Metro Media. Got to know Otto quite well, and everything that man did, he could pick up a bow and arrow and be a world class. Otto had that strange thing that God gives you. he had that coordination. He could do anything.
Yes.
I thought he was
a wonderful player.
Great guy, too. Great guy. Great golfer. He could hit the golf ball a ton. Now, but you went to tennis. You didn't do the golf, huh?
That's right. Yeah, I'm still playing. Not well, but playing.
But in between your stints, you decided we got to do something about color TV, right? And we're not...
Well, not color so much. You know, we had a standard to which all sets have to be made, and that was adopted in 1941, if you can think of it. That's when television really started. And then it was colorized in the early 50s. In 1987, the chairman of the FCC then, Dennis Patrick, called me over and said, listen, we're thinking about Japan and Western Europe is working on something called advanced television. And we don't want to have the United States left behind, so I want you to head up this Federal Advisory Committee. It's going to be about a 2-year project. I said, well, okay, sounds interesting. I'll do it. 9 years later, we worked on, and actually what happened, the Federal Advisory Committee that we had figured out that there was a better technology coming along, digital, really the language of computers. And Japan and Western Europe had really focused on advanced analog, the old technology.
Right.
So the United States, we developed a HDTV, digital HDTV standard. It took us 9 years. The FCC adopted it, and now when you see widescreen HDTV, that's it. And now we're going into even another technology, ultra high definition, which is coming along. So what you learn...
How far is that away from the main market?
It's going to be another 2 or 3, 4 years. It's coming.
Well, one of the things we hear about from our friend Rick Edelman, and he does a show here, and you know Edelman, finance
Absolutely.
advisor and so forth. Things you think are going to happen have already happened, but maybe not here, but somewhere in this world. Everything is thought of. I mean, progress is incredible.
It is.
Increments. I mean,
ultra high definition is great. Then there's an even double that coming off in Japan in the future, super high vision. So it's just going to keep going. The only problem is there's only so much that the human eye can absorb.
I was going to say, what else?
Unless you have a 150-inch screen or something of the sort. And
Like
most of us don't have that in our homes, you know.
Not yet, anyway.
No, not yet.
Either.
But high definition has been great, particularly for sports, I think. Movies.
Wonderful.
And it's just great.
And that's being, now it's going to be super high definition. Now, what are they going to be next, Dick? I mean, the art of change in our industry is incredible.
It is.
And it's been that way since the beginning. We recall the beginning days of WMAL. It was operating in an optometrist store on K Street. And then when we built Channel 7 and moved it up to a bowling alley, to see how these changes have been incredible in our business. And you're responsible for most of them.
Well, I don't say so. I'm not an engineer, but I worked on the project.
Yes, you did. You know, you did it from the legal standpoint. There was a lot of legality there, right? You had to
Absolutely.
So this is Our Town. It's Andy Ockershausen, and we're talking with Dick Wiley. And we're going to talk more about our wonderful, wonderful radio business.
Hi, Tony Sybil here to tell you about Tony and Joe's and Nick's Riverside Grill at Washington Harbor in Georgetown. Spectacular new restaurants. We've spent a lot of time rebuilding. You'll love it. It's really fantastic. For any information, you can go online to tonyandjoes.com. It'll be a wonderful experience for the whole family. Call 202-944-4545 to make reservations. Everything is fabulous. You've got to come down and have some wonderful food.
Hi, I'm Charles Mann. For athletes like me, playing every down in a pro game is like getting in a car accident. After years of playing football in Washington, my body is broken. I've had countless surgeries and joint replacements. I've been looking for a non-surgical treatment since I ended my career. I heard a radio ad for a seminar about alternative treatment. It's called regenerative medicine, which stimulates your own body to heal and repair itself. No surgery, no more pain. That got my attention. I went to the seminar to learn firsthand all about it. Now you too can benefit and receive this treatment. This is the same procedure that pro athletes use to quickly and effectively recover from injury. If you're looking to eliminate your pain and arthritis, or if you thought surgery was your only option, take the first step like I did. Call 410-787-7250. Register for the next seminar and learn more about this breakthrough procedure. Seating is limited. Register now by calling 410-787-7250 and start living life again.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. Brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
This is Andy Ockershausen. This is Our Town. And in a conversation with Dick Wiley, we've found a lot of things about television that I love, of course, but nothing means as much to me as radio. And we think podcasting is radio without a transmitter.
It's really happening, and I think there's a radio show going on right down in Orlando. And what are they talking about? Podcasting. So I think you're a forerunner in that respect. Well,
that's Janice's idea. Dick, we were in a car driving to Rehoboth Beach, or Dewey, one of the places, and Janice said to me, we've got to get busy. There's too much going on. We've got to be doing a podcast. And I said, she'll tell you, what's a podcast? That was the first time I heard the word. But she was way ahead of it, said we ought to talk about it. And the next thing we know, we started talking about it and explaining it to people, and they didn't understand. They said, well, we keep saying it's radio without a transmitter. Think it's a radio. You can get it on your phone. But it's been a godsend to us in this market, believe me.
Well, it's the computerization and the internet aspects of all, I think, media. And that's what's happening. The internet has been the greatest development, I think, in the whole field. And that's really what's led to this podcast developments.
Oh, absolutely. Technically, you mean?
Yes.
Of course. Well, one of the things that we found out in soliciting people, that's a bad word, but in encouraging people to come talk to us like we're doing now, we had difficulty explaining to them what we were doing. They said, well, where are the microphones? I said, the microphones are here, but it doesn't go out on it. What do you mean it doesn't go out? But to get them off of whatever, the people that we've had, Dick, has been incredible. And they did it because of WMAL, because of what we did here. And
because of Andy Ockershausen.
Well, it was a market. It was ripe for us, and we were a big part of our town. 24/7, we were live about our city and what went on. And people remember that. And it's a great, we had a great opportunity in our town, and we took advantage of it with talented people and a great radio station from the standpoint, a technical standpoint. In addition to the technical thing, the transmission was incredible. Our signal was wonderful. I hope they kept it up. I don't know. The AM signal, of course, we gave that up now, went on both AM and FM. But the AM signal, you could hear it in Buffalo Gap. You could hear it the other through Baltimore. It was a big part of our success. We made that presentation to the Redskins. Part of their success was they were on a great radio station.
Right.
People could hear them. Then they didn't. They crapped it, if you remember. Nobody could hear them. They didn't know where they went. So power and frequency is a big thing, Dick.
Well, I think radio still has a great role. There are a lot of different elements, but it's audio. And for example, you got satellite delivered, and you've got all the Spotify, and now Pandora maybe is sold to Sirius XM. But over-the-air radio, AM and FM, still has a great part because it's a sound heard around the world. Everybody listens to it. Turn on your radio, it's right there, and it's free. And it's free, right?
It's very free.
It's amazing.
Well, to us, and my reason for being in radio was a great reason to sell a product. It was great to talk to somebody almost at a point of sale, get them in the car, get them at home, get them in the bathroom, wherever. We were selling products, and it worked. And I thought that selling was a very important part to the audience, wanted to know what's available. It was not just in news, but what's available in the marketplace.
Well, Andy, it's wonderful that after all those years, you're still in radio, albeit podcasting, Our Town, but I think it's terrific. You and I used to see each other at the Palm, which was right near the old FCC. And
wasn't that great? Jim Quello ate there every day and never paid for a meal.
You can't do that anymore.
No, I know that.
Yeah, but Jim Quello was a terrific guy, great friend of mine, and he served 23 and a half years on the FCC. And he was a Democrat. John Dingell loved him, Congressman Dingell, but he was appointed 4 times to the commission by Republican presidents. So in those days...
because of John Dingell.
Yeah, because of John Dingell.
He was in Michigan. He worked at WJR in Detroit. I know all his background. And Jim and his wife, they finally joined Army-Navy Country Club, and I would see him over there quite frequently. But he was a good friend of broadcasting and really tried to do the right thing. He had been in the business.
Well, when I first came there, of course, I was just a lawyer, didn't know the background, and it was very helpful to have Commissioner Quello there because he was telling us the real story of really how it worked and what the industry was about. And I think it's good to have commissioners with a mix of backgrounds. I think that's
I
helpful.
do too. That's probably true in any commission in the government that have people from the very new people to the people that got all the experience there.
Yeah, it's hard because to some extent you can't come in with conflicts. And with Jim, it was always a concern having a broadcaster at the FCC, sort of the fox in the hen house, And but Jim was a high ethics guy, and it workked out. He was heavily opposed, when he came on.
Oh, I know.
It took him 8.5 days to get in, and his last fourth confirmation took 2 minutes. Danny Inouye, Senator Inouye.
Oh, he was. I just like Jim Crow and his wife Mary, and there's a great story told to me. I don't know whether it's true or not, but Bob Lee's father, Robert Lee, according to Bobby, his mother told him the story that he was in an interview with Lyndon Johnson about the job, and he was going to be promoted and so forth, and he got a phone call, and the president said, "All right, Bob, take that phone call. It's your wife." And so he had to go took the phone call. He said, "Okay, Rex, what are you bothering me?" I'm with him. And she said, "When you're finished on the way home, stop by. We don't have any cream." Remember her?
Well, yes, I do.
Was a pisser.
And Bob Lee was the only guy that outlasted Jim Queller. He served 28 years, 4 7-year terms.
Chicago guy.
A Chicago guy.
Oh, I know it. I love Bob Lee.
A lot of fun. He was a lot of fun and a smart guy.
A good friend of broadcasting, but nobody's a friend of you were, Dick. You're the best thing ever happened to this industry. No. And we all our people in AB, God bless him, Vince Wazalewski is not here anymore, and Dick Chapin's in bad shape, and all the people you and I knew in the business, some of them aren't with us anymore, but everyone will say that Dick Wiley was the man. And congrats to you you've lasted a long time, Wiley. Of course, you own the business here. I'm an employee. I'm like you. I never wanted to own anything. I just wanted to be a part of something.
Listen, as long as Andy Ockershausen is clicking, I'm going to be there, Andy.
Good for you.
Okay. I'm not going to let you outlast me.
Think you're the best. This has been a great conversation with Richard Wiley, the greatest commission in the history of the Federal Communications Commission. Do you agree to that, Janice? We do. And please give your family our best. This has been Our Town. This is Andy Ockershausen.
You've been listening to Our Town Season 4, presented by Geico, our hometown favorite, with your host, Andy Ockershausen. New Our Town episodes are released each Tuesday and Thursday. Drop us a line with your comments or suggestions. See us on Facebook or visit our website at OurTownDC.com. Our special thanks to Ken Hunter, our technical director, and WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C. And thanks to Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance.